When you were a little kid, did you learn how to ride a bike? Did you learn how to do long division or learn the capital cities of different countries? How about learning how to drive a car when you were a little older, or learning how to do laundry? We use the term learning all the time in everyday life, but within the field of educational psychology, the term learning is actually a specific term. Different people use different words to define learning within educational psychology, but in general, we're talking about a step-by-step process in which an individual experiences permanent, lasting changes in knowledge, behaviors, or ways of processing the world. Let's go through a few examples of different types of learning you might hear about in the field of educational psychology. One way that we all learn, even from infancy, is by observation. In educational psychology, we define observational learning as learning not by our own experiences, but by watching someone else behave and noting the consequences of that behavior. For example, we all learn how to speak as very young children by simply watching and listening to the people around us. We learn how to do simple motions, such as walking, by watching all of the adults around us walk. Sometimes observational learning is so natural that we don't even realize it's happening. Another type of learning identified by educational psychology is cognitive learning, which is learning through active and constructive thought processes, such as practice or using our memory. One example might be that you were taught how to tell time by looking at a clock. Someone taught you the meaning of the big hand and the little hand, and you might have had to practice telling time when you were first learning it. This process of learning was entirely inside your mind and didn't involve any physical motions or behaviors. It was all cognitive, meaning an internal thought process. The next type of learning that educational psychologists study is learning through conditioning. We've identified two types of conditioning. The first type, classical conditioning, is learning to associate a particular thing in our environment with a prediction of what will happen next. The most famous example of classical conditioning is research by the Russian scientist Pavlov, who taught his dogs that every time he rang a bell, he would give them food. Eventually, the dogs started to drool with anticipation every time they heard the bell ring. So classical conditioning is when we react to an environmental cue that tells us what's going to happen next. The second type of conditioning is called operant conditioning. Here we learn that a particular behavior is usually followed by a reward or